It was still dark when villagers in a small Henan community noticed the wooden front door of Mr. Liu's house standing slightly ajar. No one answered when they called. A trembling man pushed the door open, and what he saw stole his voice. On the dirt-streaked floor, a family of 5 lay still. Everything inside the home was untouched. No sign of robbery. Only long trails of blood led from the bedroom out toward the porch. Police later confirmed the door had been locked from the inside. So who could have carried out such a brutal massacre, and how could they vanish as if they'd never existed? You're watching Asian Criminal Case, where we retell true crimes that shook a nation. If you're drawn to chilling true crime stories, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next episode. That night, in a rural village in Henan Province, China, villagers woke to the sound of dogs barking into the dark. No one realized that just a few houses away, a family of 5 had stopped breathing. When police arrived, the wooden door was still locked from the inside. Windows were intact. Everything inside looked normal, except for one thing. On the floor, long streaks of blood ran from the bedroom to the middle room, then stopped near a blood-stained hammer. A crime with no sign of forced entry, no witnesses, and no obvious motive. Villagers, shaking, later said, "All night, we didn't hear any screams." Investigators searched for clues but found no clear footprints, no obvious DNA, only a cold, deliberate cruelty. At first, authorities thought it was an isolated tragedy, but weeks later, another house in another province was found in the exact same way. A locked house, horrific injuries, the same type of hammer, the same unanswered question. People began to whisper, "A monster walks the night. He kills whole families, then melts back into the dark." No one guessed that over the next 3 years, this man would take 67 lives, becoming the deadliest serial killer in modern Chinese history. His name, Yang Xinhai. If you've heard the name Yang Xinhai before, drop a comment below. If this is your first time hearing about it, hold tight. What follows is far darker. In the early 2000s, rural China still felt simple. In places like Henan, Anhui, and Shandong, people lived modest lives. Work the fields by day, share a meal by night under flickering lights. Serious, violent crime was rare. County police mostly handled petty thefts, stolen chickens, missing bicycles. The idea of a serial killer belonged to Western films. In Ngyiduang village, Henan, Mr. and Mrs. Liu lived with 2 little grandchildren. The grandfather would weave baskets in the evenings. The 8-year-old girl ran around laughing with the family dog. No one could imagine that laughter would be gone in a matter of days. Hundreds of miles away in Anhui, another young family was settling into a new home, hopeful for a better life. The husband double-checked locks each night, trusting the countryside to be safe. He didn't know that the lock itself would later stand as evidence in one of modern China's most horrifying crimes. That time, much of northern China was a patchwork of distant villages. Houses were spaced far apart. When the lights went out, the night was total. A place like that, seemingly peaceful, became perfect for someone who could hide in plain sight. Villagers began to report odd things. A man in a gray coat riding a bicycle past the houses at midnight. Someone peeking through a window. Yet when police checked, the traces were gone, as if he had never been there. At that stage, Yang Xinhai was just another drifter. No steady friends, no fixed address, moving from place to place doing odd jobs. People described his eyes as strange, cold and empty, as if stripped of feeling. Wherever he stayed for a few weeks, a family would sometimes be found dead soon after. Yang's victims had little in common beyond 2 things: They lived in poor rural areas, and they believed their home was the safest place in the world. On those nights when the hammer fell, that trust was shattered forever. Do you believe the peace around you is real? Comment yes if you do, and no if you think darkness can hide nearby. September 2000. A small village in Henan. Night came quicker than usual. Lights were out, and the moon cast a pale glow over old tiled roofs. Unnoticed, a man moved through the darkness. He wore a cap and carried an iron hammer, stepping lightly like a cat. The wooden door shivered and opened with barely a sound. He entered, breathed slowly, looked around. The family slept. Then a small click. The first blow of the hammer. Then a second, a third. There were no screams. It all happened within minutes. When a neighbor came by the next morning and found the door locked, they forced it open and discovered an entire family, from an 8-year-old child to a gray-haired grandmother, dead on the floor with severe head wounds. At the scene, nothing was ransacked. Money, gold, jewelry, all untouched. It appeared the attacker came only to kill. Forensics noted each victim suffered at least 2 powerful blows, suggesting an attacker with great physical strength who acted with calm, decisive violence. Yet other traces were strangely clean. Few clear footprints, nothing left behind. Villagers panicked. They began sleeping together in one room, locking doors earlier. But the fear was only beginning. Months later, another village in Anhui found the same horror replayed. Local police initially suspected robbery homicide, but crime scenes didn't match that theory. One small clue did appear: a muddy shoe print, size 42, and an old bicycle tire mark outside a house. That tiny detail would later become crucial. By mid-2001, the number of similar murders increased across Henan, Hebei, and Shandong. Investigators noticed common elements: rural locations far from cities, night attacks during blackouts, hammers or hoes used as weapons, and no survivors. The killer became known among locals as the monster of the night. Rumors spread fast. Children weren't allowed out after 6. People installed iron bars on doors and slept holding knives, but they still never saw his face or heard his voice. Only death that left total silence. Citizens must be alert, lock your doors, report strangers. But warnings felt useless. The attacker didn't just kill. He also sexually assaulted female victims when they survived the initial attack. The brutality shocked investigators. They described the acts as inhuman. By late 2002, more than 50 people had died, and no arrests had been made. Media started calling this the most savage killing spree in modern Chinese history. Police believed the killer was a drifter who knew the countryside well, traveling alone. A living ghost. But he didn't stop. He seemed driven to take more lives, treating human beings like numbers in a game. If you've made it this far, tap like if you want me to continue. The next part is the breathless chase between police and the monster Yang Xinhai, a man who showed no fear. By 2002, China faced a pressure it hadn't seen before. Over 2 years, more than 60 murders spread across 4 provinces: Henan, Anhui, Hebei, and Shandong, all similar in method. Hammers or hoes, attacks while victims slept, no witnesses. Central authorities concluded these were not isolated crimes but a coordinated serial series. A special task force formed, codename Project 804. They pulled together 34 early cases comparing scene details. A strange pattern appeared. At many scenes, police found a size 42 cheap canvas shoe print and an old bicycle tire mark, a bike model common in rural Henan from the late 1980s. Investigators thought maybe the killer was a traveling laborer, cycling between villages, living off casual work. Detectives visited construction sites, docks, and cheap hostels, asking about a quiet man with odd eyes who worked a few weeks before moving on. People remembered him, but not his real name. Some called him Old Yang, others Hai. The name Yang Xinhai showed up in reports, but no one suspected he was the killer at first. Police records revealed Yang had been imprisoned in 1996 for sexual assault and released in 1999, after which he vanished from official records. No fixed address, no family reporting him missing. He seemed to have disappeared off the map in a country of over 1 billion. In early 2003, a new attack in Linzhou County. Henan left 3 dead and 1 woman badly injured. In shock, she recalled, "He wore a mask, was thin and tall, spoke in the Henan dialect, and hit with a hammer. I pretended to be dead, so he left." Forensics found a hair on her jacket. At first, the DNA didn't match any database entries. Then analysts matched it to a prisoner record from Luoyang, Yang Xinhai. The task force officially concluded the person behind the murders was Yang Xinhai. Alerts went out nationwide. For 3 months, police searched across northern provinces, but Yang seemed to vanish into the crowd. Rumors said he'd died. Others said he'd fled south. The truth was uglier. He stayed hidden among ordinary people. On November 3, 2003, in Shangzhou City, Hebei Province, officers noticed a suspicious man during a routine check at a karaoke bar. Asked for ID, he hesitated and gave the name Yang Hai, saying he was from Henan. One officer noticed a scar on his hand that matched case files, a wound from a blade. He was taken in. Fingerprint checks flashed on the screen. 100% match to wanted suspect Yang Xinhai. After 3 years of terror, the monster of the night was finally arrested. But what he would say next during interrogation would be even more horrifying than investigators had imagined. If you're following this case, comment #Asian criminal case so I know you're here. Up next, Yang's confession, and the real reason he killed 67 people. In the Henan Provincial Criminal Investigation Office, Yang Xinhai sat silent. He wore a gray prison shirt and handcuffs, eyes vacant but oddly calm. On the table, thick case files, crime scenes, victim photos, names. An investigator asked, "Why did you kill them?" Yang looked up, gave a faint smile, and said slowly, "I killed because I wanted to. I didn't care who they were. I don't feel sorry." The answer hit the room like cold steel. Over hours, Yang confessed to 67 murders and 23 sexual assaults across 4 provinces. He recounted dates, times, how he chose houses, and even where each body lay. No hesitation, no remorse. He spoke of his method as if reading a diary. He walked village roads looking for houses occupied only by women and children, waited until late when lights were out, entered through a window, and used a hammer. If anyone woke, he hit them. If not, he took things and left. Usually no one survived. When a forensic psychiatrist asked if he was afraid, Yang replied, "I feel relieved after I kill. I feel powerful." Experts concluded he was not psychotic. He was aware and in control, but utterly ruthless. He described himself as no longer part of humanity. Official records show that between 2000 and 2003, Yang carried out 26 major attack episodes that resulted in 67 deaths. In one attack, he killed a family of 6, including a child under 5. He sexually assaulted female victims at times, either before or after killing, depending on his mood. He often biked tens of kilometers at night, carrying a hammer or hoe hidden in a sack. He didn't drink, smoke, or have friends. He survived on a violent instinct. He admitted he killed to feel alive. On February 1, 2004, the Intermediate People's Court of Lacha City tried Yang. The courtroom was full. Relatives of victims filled the seats, and many cried at the sight of him, gaunt, silent, eyes empty. The verdict was read. Defendant Yang Xinhai is sentenced to death, deprived of political rights for life, execution to be carried out by shooting. The room rose. No one objected. There was only a sense of release. A week later, on February 14, 2004, fittingly ironic on Valentine's Day, Yang was executed. He did not plead or speak. He looked distant as the shots rang out. The 3-year reign of terror by the Chinese serial killer ended, but the scars remained in millions of memories. Criminologists say Yang didn't kill for money or revenge. He killed for the pleasure of control, a dangerous disorder where murder becomes a ritual to prove existence. Some point to poverty and possible abuse in his past. Others say poverty alone doesn't make a monster. He chose his path because he liked killing, one analyst said, and that thought chills society to the bone. What do you think? Was Yang a product of society or a person born to kill? Leave a comment and let's discuss. And don't forget to subscribe to Asian Criminal Case for more true crime stories. On the morning of February 14, 2004, at the Lacha execution ground, Yang Xinhai was put to death. A single volley of shots ended it quickly. No one wept aloud. There was a hush. Witnesses later said the morning light cut through the mist and fell on his pale face, unchanged even by death. The case closed, but the echo lingered across the countryside. In Henan, Anhui, and Hebei, people still flinch at a creaky door. Parents tell their children the story of the man with the hammer as a warning. Lock your doors. Don't be naive about evil. After the case, the Chinese government strengthened population management, expanded criminal DNA and fingerprint systems, and improved national databases. In the decades since, no killing spree of the same scale has occurred. Yet psychologists still ask, what made Yang Xinhai? Was it a harsh childhood and isolation, or a brutal inner impulse that needed an outlet? One expert said, some kill for hate, some kill for money. He killed to feel alive. That idea unsettles people, because it speaks not only about him, but about the human capacity for indifference. More than 20 years later, Yang's name still sends a chill. Not just for how many he killed, but for the hollow look in his eyes. An image no one can easily forget. Journalists who visited his hometown found a ruined brick house and reluctant relatives who refused to speak. We have no one named Yang Xinhai left here, they said. The name was erased from the village, but not from history. Perhaps the worst punishment for him wasn't the bullet. It was the memory of dozens of innocent lives he took. And perhaps the scariest thing isn't a single killer at large, but our own blindness when darkness creeps closer. This is the story of Yang Xinhai, the killer who terrorized China, a real person, a real horror, and a reminder, evil does not grow by itself. It feeds on silence. What do you think about this case? Could a person raised in poverty become a monster? Or was Yang born that way? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this story compelling, please like and subscribe to Asian Criminal Case, where each episode is not just about crime, but about the human shadows behind it.